Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Carolyn Baker. Here on the first weekend in April, we are well over 200,000 coronavirus cases in the United States and over 5,000 deaths. We're being told that we might see over 200,000 deaths in the US, but I've also heard one professor of infectious diseases opine that we will have about 1.6 million deaths in the US. Right now, we have a host of states in the South and the Midwest that have been defying or intentionally ignoring the necessity of sheltering in place in order to curtail the spread of the virus. In case you hadn't noticed, industrial civilization and every institution in it is collapsing. Kids aren't going to school, and we don't know when they will, nor are college students for whom the prospects of getting a job when they graduate are now about 10 times worse than they already were a year ago. Churches are meeting online and not in brick and mortar buildings anymore. Except for takeout orders, restaurants are closing daily and many will never reopen. Healthcare is in shambles, and the equivalent of a nuclear bomb has hit the economy. For most of you, this is not news. I've been writing and teaching about collapse since 2007. If you read my books, Sacred Demise, Walking the Spiritual Path of Industrial Civilization's Collapse, Navigating the Coming Chaos, Collapsing Consciously, Love in the Age of Ecological Apocalypse, and Savage Grace, the book I co-authored with Andrew Harvey, you should be up to speed on collapse and how we must prepare for it emotionally and spiritually. Nevertheless, I'm beginning a regular series on this podcast called Coping with Collapse. And I'm going to go much more deeply into emotional and spiritual coping skills as collapse plays out in our lives. Some people are coping with collapse by staying juiced or stoned on the substance of their choice. The folks who prefer to be mood altered probably won't benefit from this series, and that too is their choice. No one has to sit up and be conscious in collapse. All of us deserve to escape here and there, and maybe a little each day, but some folks want to live in escape or die in escape, and sadly, that's their right. I know that no one wants to hear this, but I think most of you know that we are at the very beginning of collapse. We're just getting started. Any notions of going back to normal are equivalent to a belief in Santa Claus. There ain't no normal to go back to, and nothing will ever be the same as it was 3 months ago. Nor do we really want it to be. Greta Thunberg says that normal was the real crisis. Today, I'd like to begin the series of Coping with Collapse by talking about the emotion of fear, which is on the front burner for most people. No matter how much you've read and learned about collapse, you aren't human if you aren't scared. There's nothing wrong with feeling scared, but since we are human animals, our fight or flight instinct often takes over and we crater into panic. The suggestions I'm giving you today are not about not being afraid, but rather how to contain the fear so that it doesn't own us. When we are afraid, it's challenging to stay in the present, to stay in the now of our lives. As I said, this is not about getting rid of fear, but learning how to navigate it. When you think about it, all of our fears have something to do with the future. What's going to happen next? And then after that, and then after that, and on and on. What's really true is that 90% of the time in this present moment, we are truly okay. We're alive, the heart is beating, we're breathing, we have enough food to eat and water to drink, we have shelter, and we have a place to sleep. Our fear is that we won't have these things at some point in the future. And so the more we can stay in the present moment, the less fear we will experience. Now, I know this is easier said than done, but we can utilize a practice to help us stay present because living in fear of the future actually impedes our game plans for responding to the future and strategizing to make it less brutal. Also, when we're afraid, we're almost always not in our bodies. We're in our heads, and that only intensifies our fear. When we can focus on the body and actually feel the fear in our bodies and utilize our bodies to help us stay present, our fear is contained. The great Buddhist teacher Pema Chodron talks about becoming familiar with the challenges in our lives. She suggests that rather than pushing them away and trying not to think about them or living in denial of them, we actually invite them into our awareness as we might do in a guided meditation. In other words, we lean into the fear. For example, we notice how fear feels in the body. We notice the color, shape, texture, sound, and images of the fear. As Pema Chodron says, whatever the fear, get to know it well. For this purpose, I'm going to share with you a guided meditation that you can do whenever you like to help you stay present. And after this short guided meditation, I'll share some additional suggestions for navigating fear. But for right now, please get comfortable in your chair or wherever you're sitting and feel your feet or your legs, if you're lying down, on the floor. Feel contact with the earth, contact with the ground, with the floor. Feel the chair under you supporting you or behind you. And let's just take a moment to scan the body from the feet up. Just notice your feet right now and what they're feeling. Notice your legs, your calves, your thighs. Notice any sensations that are there. Notice your sit bones in your lower back. Notice your abdomen. Notice any sensations in those places. Notice your torso, your belly, your stomach. Notice your chest. Be aware of your breathing. Notice your heartbeat. Notice your arms and your hands. Notice any sensations that are in your upper body. Notice your shoulders and your neck, your eyes, your head. Notice any fears that you are aware of right now. And notice that most of the time, those fears are in your head. So just allow the thoughts that pertain to these fears to be in your head for a little bit. Just notice them popping around in your head. What if? What if? And then begin to mentally congeal those fears. Bring them all together into the center of your head, somewhere behind your eyes and between your ears. And congeal them into a steel ball. All of those fears into one steel ball. And then go to the other end of your body, which we call sometimes the pelvic floor. And this is the area between the genitals and the anus. It's called the perineum. We don't talk about it much in this culture, but some people call it the pelvic floor. It's the very base of the pelvic bowl. It's close to the first chakra, which is at the base of the spine. Just be with that area of your body for a moment. Just notice the perineum. Picture it as a floor of the pelvic bowl. And then go back to your head and the steel ball that you've created with all that energy in it that contains your fears, your anxieties, your what ifs. And allow that steel ball to just very slowly descend down through the middle of your head, slowly descending like a pebble in a pool of water descends very slowly. Allow the energy to come down into your neck and throat, down through the center of your neck and throat, slowly going down into the chest, the collarbone, the rib cage, slowly descending down. Now behind your heart, behind your stomach, descending slowly. Now into your abdomen, very slowly behind the intestines. Slowly, just floating down. And allow that ball of energy, that steel ball, to gently, slowly rest on the perineum, on the pelvic floor. Let it softly come to rest there. As you bring those fears, those anxieties, in one sphere down to the base of the pelvic bowl. And now take another breath or two. And slowly bring your attention back to this time and space as you listen to my voice. Notice if there was any difference between the time you started the meditation and the time that you ended it. If any of that energy was able to descend downward, helping you to feel a little more present and grounded. This is just one tool that you can use to help you navigate your fear. Another tool, of course, is to make a game plan and create some options or contingency plans. Don't do this out of panic, but out of clear thinking. A good time to do this is after you've done the guided meditation that I just led you through. Another tool is to practice gratitude for what you have in this moment. Allow yourself to fully appreciate the fact that you have food, that you have clean water to drink, that you have shelter and a place to sleep. If you have friends or loved ones, give thanks for that. If you have a job, give thanks for that. Even if you hate your job, it's a form of income. Think about all of the aspects of your life for which you feel grateful and take some quality time to appreciate them. Another tool is to talk with a friend or loved one about your fear and share it with them. Perhaps they have the same fears and you might think, well, they're scared too, so what good is that? The good is that the very act of sharing our fear means that we're not alone with it. If we can say the words, "I'm scared," it changes us and sometimes even the situation. If the person you're sharing with has similar fears, it gives them the opportunity to not be alone with their fear, and it deepens the intimacy and closeness between you. It doesn't solve the problem, but when we're connected with other people and not feeling alone with our fear, it makes the problem easier to face. And creatively, we can draw the fear or paint the fear or compose music about the fear or write a poem about it. Another tool is journaling. Often, when we can rationally write down in detail what we're afraid of and why, it creates some space between us and the fear and allows us to view it from the perspective of an observer rather than being possessed by the fear. To summarize, utilizing the tools to lean into the fear, which I've given you today, alongside clear thinking, strategizing, and getting support as you navigate the fear, you can help contain the fear and learn from it. Let me again emphasize that few of us have ever done societal collapse before. We're now in territory that most humans have never experienced, so none of us is an expert on collapse. That brings to mind a poem I'd like to share in closing. It's by the American poet Theodore Roethke, that's spelled Roethke, Theodore Roethke, who struggled with bipolar disorder and lived in fear much of his life. It's called The Waking. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I feel my fate in what I cannot fear. I learn by going where I have to go. We think by feeling, what is there to know? I hear my being dance from ear to ear. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Of those so close beside me, which are you? God bless the ground. I shall walk softly there and learn by going where I have to go. Light takes the tree, but who can tell us how? The lowly worm climbs up a winding stair. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. Great nature has another thing to do to you and me, so take the lively air and lovely learn by going where to go. This shaking keeps me steady, I should know. What falls away is always and is near. I wake to sleep and take my waking slow. I learn by going where I have to go. That was The Waking by Theodore Roethke. Right now, we're all learning by going where we have to go. This week, I wish you calm and grounded presence as we all make this collapse journey. Until next time, this is Carolyn Baker inviting you to create islands of sanity in a sea of chaos.